Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Latrice Armstead knew she had to escape a dangerous relationship, not just for herself, but mostly because of her 3 young sons. Her marriage to Tony Bledsoe had become violent, so violent in fact that the last time he had beaten up on her, he had broken her jaw. It was then that Latrice decided to pack up and move with her boys and go stay with family in St. Louis, Missouri. Her move was almost complete, but Latrice had to travel back to Memphis, Tennessee to pick up her youngest son on July 28, 2012. By that evening, her family was beginning to worry that they hadn't heard back from her. July 29, 2012 went by also with no contact from Latrice. By July 30th, the next day, her family made the decision to contact the local police department and report Latrice as missing. Latrice Armstead had disappeared. Searches for Latrice were futile, and fears were heightened when Latrice's car was found abandoned and burned in Clarksdale, Mississippi. But there was still no sign of this mother of 3 anywhere. Where is Latrice Shay Armstead? Hello, and welcome to the Where Are They podcast in a bonus episode, another unsolved missing persons case. Latrice's story is heartbreaking, especially considering the 3 young boys she left behind, boys who continue to ask for their mother every single day. Trigger warning, this story does involve some domestic violence. If that is a triggering or sensitive topic for you, this episode might not be for you. Latrice Shay Armstead was born on November 2nd, 1973. Latrice grew up in Crenshaw, Mississippi with her family, including siblings that she maintained a close relationship with even into adulthood. I do want to mention, it seemed that Latrice often went by her middle name of Shay, but I'm going to call her Latrice for purposes of this story and keeping it straight, but I think it's important to mention that it seems like family and very close friends mostly or commonly referred to her as Shay. As an adult, Latrice went on to marry a man by the name of Tony Bledsoe, and they would go on to have 3 children together. Initially, everyone who knew Tony spoke highly of him, never knew him to be violent or angry, and overall said he was a good person. However, something would change behind closed doors of Tony and Latrice's marriage, and things would get violent. Very violent. The last fight Tony and Latrice were known to have, Tony beat Latrice so badly that she broke her jaw and had to have it wired shut. Because of this, Latrice was given an order of protection, or as we commonly refer to it as in the US, a restraining order against her husband. Now, we all know that a restraining order is just a legal filing, a piece of paper. And many people are known to break the restraining orders. It can't stop somebody from approaching you, especially in domestic cases. Shortly after that fight, Latrice made the decision to move to St. Louis, Missouri to live with family, get back on her feet, and get away from her husband. She was going to file for divorce and custody of her children, and she was going to try to move on with her life. On July 28, 2012, Latrice was almost done with her move to St. Louis. The last fight she had had with her husband, Tony, had been the final straw. She was not going to be moving back to Memphis, Tennessee, and she knew she needed to provide a better life for her sons. She had been granted temporary custody of her 3 boys, and this wasn't sitting well with Tony. July 28th was the day that she left St. Louis and headed back to Memphis to pick up her youngest son. She was seen with Tony that day around 11 o'clock a.m., but after that time, the family was unable to reach her. Now, she wasn't supposed to be with Tony. He did have that order of protection. But if no one reports it or Latrice herself doesn't report it, it's likely authorities wouldn't even know. The silence from Latrice, however, continued, and the family was becoming increasingly worried. On July 30th, 2012, Latrice's family officially reported her as missing. As authorities investigated Latrice's disappearance, they discovered that she had been last seen with Tony, her husband. Law enforcement determined that this did indeed violate the protection order Latrice had against him, and they went looking for Tony, found him, and arrested him. He said he had no idea where Latrice was, however. Detectives weren't turning up many leads on her whereabouts either, that is, until the following day, July 31st. Her abandoned car was found discarded and burned near Little Simmons Road in Clarksdale, Mississippi. This was about an hour south of Memphis, Tennessee, the opposite direction of her route back north to St. Louis. Her car yielded no clues, however, but everyone now feared the worst. Her family knew that Latrice would never abandon her children. She would never take off and leave them behind. If she had been running for her life and was hiding, why was her car found burned down in Mississippi? None of this made any sense. And add in the fact that Latrice was diabetic and required daily medication that she didn't have. Finding Latrice was now possibly a matter of life and death. Despite the urgency of the matter, Latrice was not found, nor were there any clues that would lead to her whereabouts, or even what happened to her. Authorities did believe that Tony knew more than he was saying, but he maintained his innocence in her disappearance, and there really was nothing more law enforcement could do to hold him. They just didn't have the evidence. He would have to be released. Latrice was last seen with Tony on Springleaf Lane in Memphis. This is a residential neighborhood on the southeast side of the city. Springleaf Lane to Little Simmons Road in Clarksdale, Mississippi is about 80 miles. Little Simmons Road looks to be, in part at least, a remote dirt road on the outside of the city of Clarksdale, making it a good dump spot for someone getting rid of or burning a vehicle. I am curious, did Tony or Latrice have any connections to that area of Mississippi? Why did her car end up in Clarksdale? We know that Latrice was from Crenshaw, Mississippi, but Clarksdale looks to be about 40 miles south of Crenshaw. It is pretty well known, at least here in the United States, that Memphis, Tennessee has one of the highest crime areas in the U.S. However, in this case, I don't know that that matters. Latrice, a family-oriented and doting mother, would never leave her family. She would absolutely never leave her children behind. Although authorities continue to suspect foul play, the family does have to hope for the best. They are raising Latrice's children who talk about their mother every day. Latrice is described as a black female standing 5'2" tall and weighing around 160 pounds when she disappeared in July of 2012. Latrice was 38 years old then and would today be 51. She has brown hair and brown eyes. Latrice often goes by her middle name Shay. Her ears are pierced, and she has a gold tooth, her right lateral incisor. She has a few tattoos, a heart on her left breast, a blue rose on her right arm, a rosary around her upper left arm, 3 bears on her left shoulder blade, and a panther on her leg. Remember, Latrice is also diabetic and had a broken jaw when she disappeared. Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of Latrice Armstead is asked to contact the Coahoma County Sheriff's Office at 662-624-3085. There is a national hotline available for domestic violence victims as well. If you or someone you know is in a potentially dangerous domestic situation, you can call 1-800-799-SAFE. You can text START to 88788, or you can visit thehotline.org. Thank you for listening to Latrice's story today. We don't know a lot about her case, but we do know that a mother went missing under very suspicious circumstances and left behind a family that loves her very much, including 3 young sons. The main person of interest has never been charged in anything to do with Latrice's disappearance. I am curious to know your thoughts. Do you think we have an obvious answer here as to what happened to Latrice? Or do you think another theory or possibility is likely here? Thank you again for listening to Latrice Armstead's story and for supporting our show. I appreciate your ongoing support of our mission, and we will continue to raise awareness of as many missing person cases as we can. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing person story. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.